Good midday, morning, afternoon, whatever the hell it is for you, wherever you are in the world. Episode 176 of the 359 podcast on Wednesday, February 8th. Good morning, afternoon, evening, on and on, because we're all over the world.
All right, let's get it going. Come on.
To Roger Chang and our special guest, Scott Stein today. Thanks for
I live
joining
beyond
guys.
time. Good to see you.
There you go. Well, that's a very appropriate thing to say,
Right?
since we'll be dedicating the entire show to Android Wear 2.0 and wearables and watches. Is that something people care about still? I don't know.
People care about time, the concept of time.
Time travel.
Do you care about a smartwatch?
Is time travel a part of Android Wear 2.0? or-
Yes, you can now travel through
maybe
time.
it's 3.0.
Yeah, it's tough to get people to care about smartwatches. We know that.
But no,
Google probably knows
we're
that
gonna,
too.
We're going to break down all the details. Scott has had an extensive amount of time using the software as well as the new LG Watch. Watches. And he'll break down all and answer all your questions. As always, if you have any, leave them in the comment section. Brian will pick them out, and we will answer them in about 4 minutes or so.
All right, let us get through the recording, and we'll come back and hit all your talking points in the chat in exactly 3 minutes and 59 seconds from 3, 2...
Welcome to the 359, where we talk about the top tech news of the day and all of the crap we want to throw in. I'm Roger Chang, and with me is a very special guest, the Wizard of Wearables, Scott Stein.
Thanks. First time I've ever been called that, and I hope I get called it every time.
Well, Scott is here to break down Android Wear 2.0. It just got announced, as well as a couple new LG watches.
Yes.
Scott, first to break down the Android Wear has had a tough time, right? The initial launch was kind of iffy, and people weren't really on the bandwagon. What makes Android Wear 2.0 different and better?
So I'm sure Google knows it's standing in relation to Apple Watch, but now Android Wear 2 is giving a lot of stuff that should have been on the watch before. And if you have an Android smartwatch, you'll be really excited to see a lot of these features. They're going to come to a lot of the watches. Android Pay. So if you have NFC, you can actually make payments now. Watch faces have gotten better, particularly if you know the term complications. Basically, it's little bits of info that live on your watch. Apple Watch has these. Basically, you get the weather, get steps.
Are they kind of like widgets on your phone? Or?
Kind of like little widgets. Android Wear already has some of these, but they're not really like formalized in the system. Now you can add a lot. Some watch faces allow you to add like 8, which sounds crazy, but it's really good because you get at-a-glance info, and those a lot of times become app launchers. So that's how I like to use watches. You got that. Google Fit has gotten better. Is it as good as a Fitbit? No, but it does more activity tracking and things like that. Obviously, that's where wearables lie. And those are the main things, and it also just runs more on the watch. The apps are meant to now download completely and work better in offline mode, which is stuff that Apple Watch does, Samsung's watches do. But then I've only used them so far on LG's 2 new watches, which is a different story.
Also, bottom line, how does Android Wear 2.0, how does the experience compare to Apple Watch?
Not as good.
Okay.
But I think also I'm looking at
End of
this-
story.
Yeah, end of story. Done. But it's also beta software I'm looking at. This is pre-release, so it could get better. A lot of apps have not hooked into it yet. I found that some things got a little sluggish. Sometimes Google Fit didn't seem like it was syncing quite right, but that, again, might get ironed out. I think it's a lot more glanceable. It doesn't pop stuff up in your face like it used to with Android Wear for Google Now. Assistant now is like Siri or the others where you press a button and bring it up.
Right.
But it doesn't speak to you. It shows you text. It doesn't really feel all that much different, and it's not going to feel like an Amazon Echo or a Google Home. It could hook into more things. So overall, you say, thank goodness, it's better. But it's not the best, and that could be a problem. You're going to need great watches to take advantage of it, and that's where Google and its relationship to the hardware partners is a little weird.
Well, speaking of which, you spent some time with LG's 2 watches, which are sort of the flagship devices for Android Wear 2.0. It's LG Watch Sport and LG Watch Style. I'm glad they ditched the weird Urbane name because that didn't make any sense to me.
I'm going to forget Urbane ever existed.
But how are those watches? What's the experience like with Android Wear 2.0?
I want the one that's in the middle that doesn't exist because Style is thin, but it lacks heart rate. It lacks NFC for Android Pay.
Oh.
So it's a launch watch that doesn't have Android Pay. Kind of strange. It does your basic stuff, but the battery life is really short. It lasted less than a full day as we've been wearing it, which is not great. But it looks kind of clean. It's $250, which is not the cheapest Android Wear watch.
Right.
Then Sport ties everything in, like the Samsung Gear S3. It's an LTE phone plus GPS plus smartwatch. It's huge. It's a gauntlet on your wrist.
You're saying it actually makes the S3 look small? Or?
Yeah, no, it makes the S3 look really small.
That's insane.
Which is insane. It's really big. It definitely works as a phone in standalone mode. That's kind of cool if you want that, but you have to pay for data service for that, like $10 a month.
Yep.
It's $350, not an unreasonable price, but the battery life was kind of because that's what happens with LTE.
I took a look at both these watches. They are kind of on the bland looking side, right?
Yeah, they're a little bit futuristic generic,
right?
Is what I would say. So it's not as good as the Samsung Gear S3, which in and of itself was not as good as I would have liked it to be. So you're in the middle.
Okay, well,
that's
for more
the story.
For more of these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Scott Stein. Stay tuned.
Thanks for listening.
Good talk.
Yeah.
That's a very exciting news.
You packed in a lot of information in 4 minutes.
I was trying.
Applause.
I know. It was like a marathon of just information gushing
when
out.
you have mixed feelings, it's so hard to give a spot. And truthfully, here's the problem. You're looking at beta pre-release stuff. So you're like, what is our final judgment? That's why we don't have rated reviews on these watches yet, because you can't come to a consensus. You got to give it a fair shake through launch.
And do you think it'll actually get better once you get sort of the full software intact, or?
I think it will, but look, are these going to make people care? The bottom line, are these going to make people care more about smartwatches? No.
Yeah.
That's really kind of the takeaway, because the Apple Watch is sitting at the top in a war of attrition, I think, where it has a lot of companies gone out of business. They've made some good, solid improvements, nothing ground shaking, but useful.
Yeah, I mean, I think the like when Apple last year started focusing, kind of pivoting, I hate using that word, pivoting towards the device is less of a fashion item, but more of a activity tracker, kind of capitalizing on the fitness aspect of it.
Yeah.
That was a smart move. And I'm not sure Samsung has done that. I'm not sure, Android Wear has done that really well. Like they're still trying to present this as a smartwatch, and I think people don't want a smartwatch yet. They don't even care about Apple Watch as a smartwatch. They care about it as a fitness tracker.
Yes, and they care about it as a statement or something that they can feel hooks into their stuff. And there are some things Apple Watch does that are pretty simple. There are other things that are really complicated about it that don't work that well. And that's probably the best, because Pebble I always liked, but Pebble does not exist anymore in what it ever was. So now it's part of Fitbit. Who knows what's going to happen? And even that hit its wall. It was more about certain features. Samsung makes great hardware. Those watches are really interesting. It's a problem because if you hook them up to an Android phone, that's why I have a hard time recommending them. There's a lot of hook-ins.
Yeah.
But you have to get into Samsung stuff. You're already using Google stuff.
You have to create a Samsung account. You really have to be in the full Samsung ecosystem to take advantage of it. Like I use a Pixel with the S3, and it's not the best experience. And I switched it over to an iPhone. It's even worse. Like it's kind of like this kind of half experience that you're getting, right?
It's a double hook in, and at least when the Apple Watch experience is the idea that you set it up, and it's not easy to set up and remove stuff. It's kind of annoying, but once you're in there, it's fully hooked in. It's part of one account system.
Yep.
Versus Google and Samsung and S Health and a lot of permissions, a lot of things I'm granting, and bridge conduit apps.
I'm not feeling super comfortable with all the permissions I'm giving to Samsung,
in this age, it freaks me out.
Yeah.
And I know it's like you can't. It's hard to keep your eye on what's going on, but when you just think like I am agreeing to so many different things right now. It's like Eula City, and then I don't know. It's numbing. Then if you want third-party apps, you got to have bridge conduits for that. And boy, this sounds like fun. And I look at wearables and I'm exhausted. So the average person, forget it. Google, at least, we didn't get to say this on the 4 minutes. The reason I'd be more likely to recommend Android Wear is at least it's part of your Google life.
Yeah.
And if you're an Android user, that's what you're after. So you've got Assistant. That's what you want. You want Assistant on your wrist. It's going to be hooked in better. I don't think it's perfect right now, but it's more of a watch. And Google's Android Wear
have
feels.
The watch here.
I have it. Unfortunately, battery died.
But
because it's 250.
Yeah, look at this thing. This is the Style. This is the smaller one.
LG Watch Style, which is not the most stylish watch. It's an unfortunate name for the Style. It's okay. I like it more.
It definitely
than
oversells
others.
itself by calling itself the Style.
I would call it the LG Watch Neat. It's like a nice, clean haircut.
Not on the rocks.
Right. It's a clean haircut. It definitely. I wouldn't mind wearing it. I think it has a clean.
It is clean. I'll give you that.
So many watches. I hate when they start looking like things that escaped like a fancy jewelry shop from the 70s, or I don't know. It's like full like bangles and baubles.
I actually like
this.
I like the S3 design. Like I know you thought it looks too much like an actual watch. I kind of liked it.
I like it, and I like it more going back to it. That's the thing is following up. Boy, that is a lot nicer to me than the two current LG
All right,
watches.
so let's throw out some questions.
Yeah, we're gonna run out of time quick, but let's hit the chat. Jim and Jacob, let's talk when and who the update's coming for. Jim and Jacob are hoping that their Sony Smartwatch 3 and Moto, respectively, are going to be on the list for the update.
So, good question. We actually put a story up on CNET today about all the watches that are getting updates. I forgot which ones specifically are. It's a long list.
But the list is on CNET.com.
Yes.
Plug.
You can definitely check it out there.
But be comforted knowing the list is actually quite long. And here's the list. I'm actually going to pull it up and talk to you about it. Sony's is not on. I'm sorry to say.
Oh.
But Moto 360 is.
Which all of them?
The 2015. Now, if you have the first generation Moto 360,
You're probably out of luck.
you're probably out of luck.
Yeah.
It's a long list. It's more current things. Asus ZenWatch 2 and 3, Casio, Fossil Q Founder.
No one's bought these watches.
Yeah,
Let's
you
be
got
honest.
you got a Fossil Q lying
Yeah,
in your drawer.
exactly.
Now, the ones we care about more, I would say, Huawei Watch, which has always been our top Android Wear pick for a while now.
Yeah.
That gets it. The new Moto 360, when I say new meaning 2015 onwards, those get it. The tags connected watch.
Oh yeah,
that better get updated if you're spending.
I know.
I want that to be updated for life. I want it to regenerate and form.
For how much does that thing cost? It's a couple thousand, right? 1,500.
1,000, 1,500.
I mean, to be
It's
fair,
over
actual
1,000.
tag watches are way more expensive, so they could look at that and go, "Look, it's a bargain."
But there are also ones like actually Watch Urbane LTE gets the update. So if
Makes sense though. LG's super cozy with Google.
And Watch Urbane and LG Watch R. Not the very first generation of Android Wear watches. If you had a
that
Gear,
makes sense though.
you have a Gear Live or a LG Watch, not the round, but the original square, you're not going to be in luck here.
All right, what other questions do we got?
What about LG Watch Sport? Is that on the list?
LG Watch Sport is the new one.
Okay, so that's probably coming.
That's the one that we just looked at.
Got it.
Is there an earlier version of?
There was the LG Watch R, the LG Watch Urbane, and the Watch Urbane LTE.
God, those names are ridiculous.
All the names are always dumb.
The chronicler of smartwatch history.
Yes.
You have to pull a strange chart out. They've run out of letters and terms and
Right.
names for these things.
And let's talk about specific time. When is this rolling out?
Good question. There's not been these watches, the Watch Sport and the Watch Style are available at the end of this week. They're going to be the first to get it. The others are getting it on a rollout. Now, you know how Android updates work.
Oh yeah.
Google had said that these are coming soon.
But there's no, fortunately this time around, there's no like carrier interference. Well, aside from some of the, I guess the LTE ones, but most of these can be updated yourself.
I think that these should be happening pretty soon.
Yeah.
But they are going to be rolling out. Not like all of a sudden on Friday you're going to get your update. Maybe not. But it's not. There's no specific date updates that we've seen. So you may have to hang in there. But those will get it.
I imagine.
And I think you'll be better off. However, we have not tested Android Wear 2.0 on old watches.
Oh yeah.
So that's why we have not said it's aiming to make it better. It should make it better.
I would imagine the timing for the updates are gonna differ from manufacturer to manufacturer, right? Just to make sure, because they tweak the software in different ways.
Yeah,
they've got to go and they've got to vet all this stuff. So
you got to make sure the battery
it's
life
probably
is
not happening anytime soon.
I hope the battery life doesn't get impacted. I mean, again, we're testing this on new watches that we've never had any comparative results on. So if you put it on an old watch, what is the battery life difference? Google didn't talk about any gains or losses in battery life with Android Wear 2.0, so we don't know.
All right, so our buddy Michael is back in the chat. He's been with us a long time.
Yep.
Hey to Michael. Scott, he wants you to put Apple Watch side by side with the LG Sport.
I don't have the Apple Watch on me.
Not literally.
Oh, side by side.
Oh, that's what I thought he meant too. Like literally side by side
to compare.
Give us your personal perspective.
But give it to us in like 15 seconds.
I think the Apple Watch is a much more polished experience. The one thing that Apple does right now that I think is really smart is they're not creating too many variants and lines.
Yeah.
In fact, what's really cool is that their entire lineup does heart rate. Their entire lineup does Apple Pay. Now you're going to have some Android watches that don't have Android Pay. You're going to have some that don't have heart rate.
I mean,
for whatever reason.
The core dilemma, though, is
Do you need
unless
heart rate?
no,
Who
unless
knows?
you're an iPhone user, Apple Watch is irrelevant to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So-
You can't use it anyhow.
Yeah.
So would I go switch over just to use an Apple Watch? I mean, probably not. I think it's more about iPhone and total iOS experience. But I like that it's all in there. However, I'm not wild with Apple Watch Series 2 that the GPS functions are made so automagically invisible that you really have almost no awareness of them. You can't turn GPS on and off. It only works with certain activities. It works when Apple wants it to, and it hooks into things that Apple deems it to hook into. So it's so invisible. I guess all GPS works when an app wants it to, but it does you do feel like a little removed. Like, where is it? I don't even see it. I'm not aware of it. I love that the Apple Watch is swim friendly.
Right.
That's something that there are some Android watches that do that. I think it's like water resistance is always nice to have more of it. But I also think it's so much smaller. The thing that kills me about LG Watch Sport is it's super big. So if you want a GPS sport watch, you may not want a monster watch. And at least Apple Watch is pushing that sport thing in a more normal size.
To be fair, if you're a runner, you're probably used to those big clunky GPS watches, right?
You are, but even Dan Graziano, who wears running watches all the time, basically looked at the sport and was like, "Oh my god!" He was like, "What is that?" It's super big. It's super big, and I don't know how many more times I can say it. It's thick, and it doesn't feel like it needed to be that large.
So we're hoping that it's going to scale down. Hopefully, some point the price is going to come down, as the Matthew in the chat has mentioned, asking if we know any speculation about when Android watches are going to start to come down. I can't really imagine that we have much to say about that outside of we hope to.
Yeah, prices. I mean, I think you have so many people making watches. I think that's going to start happening. Asus has made a couple of really competitive priced Android Wear smartwatches. I mean,
Mark mentions the ZenWatch 2. Yep.
Yeah, it was super cheap. The ZenWatch 3, which we actually never did a full review on, but we're going to now that it's getting the 2.0 update. We're going to do lots of quick reviews on all these watches to try to get you an answer as soon as possible about what the best one is, because we're curious. I think it's going to be a surprise as far as like ones will emerge. You go, oh, this is now the best one. I think they'll get really super affordable, $150. You'll see ones floating out there.
Yep.
I really hope that this becomes the beginning of really customizable Android Wear watches that start looking very different from each other, so that there's a reason to buy one versus another. Not locked onto that you can only get those features of that watch, but just something a little.
Yeah, they all do kind of look. They all kind of have the same shape and design. They all come off. I don't know. That's why I said this is kind of generic looking, because they all kind of look similar.
But then I also feel like at the same time, so I say I want them to all be different, and then I think, well, how annoying would it be? I don't like that Apple made its own Nike sport watch in the sense that it has a few features that are only baked into that one. It's like special edition game consoles.
Right,
it's like now I can only get those Siri hooked in Nike controls on that Nike watch. Well, why didn't, or that watch face? Apple doesn't have a watch face store, which is crazy. Why can't you get that Nike watch face on your regular Apple Watch? Buy a special version. Like, I wouldn't want to have the Casio one have one thing I like, and then I go, but I can't get that on.
Although, you know what? That's really the reality of how these companies think. They need to have something that differentiates.
It's
so,
true. What else are they going to do?
Rapid fire, last couple of points.
Yeah.
Mike's rebuttal is that he's waiting for the Google Pixel Watch.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know. Which, by the way, we talked to Google about that.
That's a follow-up story.
They so far they're not really hot on that. A lot of the rumors were that they were going to have a Pixel Watch for Android Wear 2.0. Obviously, that's not the case. We have the LG watches instead. So
I think it's going to come.
All right, we should
I think
wrap
it's going to come.
Yeah,
we
unfortunately, we've
should
got
wrap
it
things
wrong.
up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott, very much for joining us at the show. Always a pleasure to have you. If you liked anything you saw or heard here, check us out on CNET. Our podcast is also available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, FeedBurner, and Google Play Music. We will see you all tomorrow.
Bye-bye.